Welcome to this episode of Lori Rivers Holistic Healing Podcast. And today we're going to talk about menopause, specifically actually perimenopause. And we're going to talk about 3 things that you can do to keep it from being as much of a zone of chaos as it is for a lot of women. Not for everybody, but we're going to talk about that a little bit too. So to start off with, I'll just tell you a little bit about my experience with it and why this is so important to most women, but also for me personally right now. And that is because I had gotten to the place with the lifelong fibromyalgia that I'd experienced. I had adjusted the terrain of my body. I thought that I had addressed underlying hidden infections, and things had gotten so much better to the point where I thought that I was totally done, which actually we're never totally done with addressing these hidden infections because it needs to be something that's ongoing. But that's a whole other thing. But you do get to the place where you only need to do that a couple of times a year to address those hidden infections. Anyway, and then perimenopause hit, and I didn't even know that that's what it was to begin with. I just knew that I wasn't feeling like myself big time. I lost all of my motivation. I'm a very motivated person usually, and I was like, I don't care. I don't want to do anything. I usually wake up at 3:30 a.m. in the mornings. I don't really recommend that but I don't feel like other people need to do that, but that's just what feels good to me. I feel awake and alive, and I love having that quiet time early mornings to do my soul feeding things and exercise and things like that. And I was not wanting to get out of bed. I had to drag myself out of bed. I was sleeping for 12 hours a night. And I started to have these crazy emotional roller coaster things going on, which I haven't had in this way since I was a teenager. And I just did not understand what was going on. There were a lot of other things happening as well. Fibroids had developed, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm at that age where I'm going to be hitting menopause at some point here. So I started looking into it, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, y'all, everything just tanked. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to do anything, and I felt miserable. And again, that's not usually me at all. But this was gradually over the course of a couple of years until it got to this point where it was untenable. I just wasn't able to function. So that happened probably about 8 months ago. It got to that point. And I started to look into bioidentical hormone therapy using creams and working with a doctor because with these hormones, they're very tricky. You don't want to up your estrogen without getting enough progesterone and all these things. And I had no idea where I was personally. I haven't supplemented with hormones before because they are so tricky. But the other thing that I realized within this was that if my hormones were that off, and if I was having this hard a time with perimenopause, right? Because I'm still getting my periods and things like that. But so perimenopause is that time before you actually stop having your periods. But I realized that if perimenopause was giving me this much trouble, that I still had work to do on the root causes. I still have critters in there that are causing harm to my system, that are getting things out of whack. I still have some terrain things that I need to do, meaning the mitochondria in the body. Because if my hormones aren't functioning properly, if that's not happening, then there's something that's out of whack in there. Well, more than something. Because the thing about this is that our bodies kind of work like a pyramid here. And the first thing that goes when something is wrong in the body is these sex hormones, because they're not a necessity for survival, right? So on the bottom here, you have all of your survival things. So if you're dealing with something like long hauler syndrome, like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, those things, MS, then your body is keeping up, it's putting the most energy into keeping up with those necessary survival parts of the body, those functions of the body, right? The heart beating, the liver working, the blood pumping, and those absolute foundations. And then depending on how out of whack your body is, and this is this the terrain of the body that we're talking about and the hidden infections in the body, depending on the level of that, then things up here start to get knocked off, right? The body is not prioritizing them because it's dealing with trying to take care of the critters. It's dealing with the hidden infections. And by hidden infections, I'm talking about things like parasites, Lyme, any pathogens that are in the body. So that, again, that top part that gets the body's like, all right, you know what? We've got a lot that we're dealing with right now. We're putting our energy into fighting off these pathogens, trying to repair the damage that they've done and that toxins in the body have done, and just taking care of the basics, the absolute basics. So, screw the sex hormones for right now. So those get super dysregulated. And a lot of women also just with, dealing with a lot of PMS, a lot of menstrual cycle issues and symptoms. So the three things that I've found that have been super helpful for me. The first one is super easy. So let's start with that one. This is a Cellcore product. Now, Cellcore is the supplement line that I use with all my students, all my clients. It's the main one. I sometimes bring in some other ones too, but this is the main one because it works, y'all. I've been doing this for 20 plus years. I've been coaching people with chronic fatigue syndrome, with these chronic illnesses, and also just people who want to be super healthy. And I've tried pretty much all the supplement lines that are out there, and I've given up on them, really. And then I was introduced to Cellcore, and they work. And so I actually stopped doing a lot of the other things that I was recommending with people. And like I said, we use almost exclusively Cellcore now. Anyway, this one is called Me Support. And they just came back out with it recently. And it's mental emotional support. It's in a tincture. And this is support for your emotions, but also for your nervous system. If you are familiar with the limbic system, this actually helps out your limbic system. It helps out your nervous system. So this helps you to go from fight, flight, freeze into that parasympathetic rest, digest, heal. And that's that calm state. Now, I never would have thought that that anybody would be able to put that into a bottle. But I have been using this lately, and some of my students have started using it as well. And I'm waiting to hear back from my students to see if it's helping them out, because especially with these illnesses like chronic fatigue syndrome, like long hauler syndrome, you can get stuck in that fight, flight, freeze. But I think that that's just a part of also of being in this world that we live in today, because we always have things coming at us, and because we have these little things that are constantly pinging and things like that. So to be able to have something that you have in a bottle that helps to support a calmer state and a more uplifted state as well is really, really good. I think that my partner is very grateful that I have started taking this and that it works, because though I find that I'm not in fight, flight, freeze most of the time, I'm usually in parasympathetic. But I was finding that there were times where my emotions would just be going all over the place, and I would just be so annoyed with my partner, or I would start to feel kind of weepy, that feeling like they weren't giving me, enough attention or enough love or whatever. And again, that's not something that I usually feel, but that was a part of that perimenopause emotional roller coaster that I was experiencing. And since I've started this, it's been, I think it's only been a week now, and I've been able to tell a significant difference. I'm just a lot more even, a lot more, I don't know exactly how to explain the whole thing, because it's intangible, right? It's not even that I'm happy bouncing off the walls all the time either, but it's just an uplifted, even feeling. And there aren't any side effects. It's herbs. It's herbs and some other special things, y'all. So amazing. That's the first thing, super easy. And we do sell that in my store, so we'll put a link to that. Students who work with me get a 12% discount off of all the supplements and things like that. So if you do end up working with me, then you'll get a discount on that. But otherwise, it's just what it says it is in the store. The second thing is those bioidentical hormones that I was talking about. Now, my experience with that was interesting, because there were some other things going on in my body that I didn't realize until just recently, that made the bioidentical hormones not work fully. But they did help. They did take me from, I mean, zero, like miserable. I did not want to be alive, which was in some ways, it's very similar to having ME/CFS, having chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalomyelitis, or having long hauler syndrome, which I didn't have those, but it had a lot of those same symptoms with slightly different flavors. So I knew that it wasn't, chronic fatigue syndrome coming back or long hauler syndrome coming back, but it did have a lot of the body pain, like what I experienced most of my life with fibromyalgia, and lots of other things. So the bioidentical hormones that I use are they are creams. You can't really see that. And it's with a specific program that I work with, because I would not, and I don't recommend this for other people who are going through perimenopause or menopause either. I don't recommend that you try to figure out how to supplement those hormones on your own, because it's very confusing and you can cause some problems. So I started a program with Dr. Michelle Sands, and it's called Glow, and we'll put the link to that in the description as well. And I love their team. You can call their team whenever if you're having issues. And the thing with perimenopause, and I can't believe I didn't say this earlier on, but the thing with perimenopause and why it's so confusing, and this is why it's it's called the zone of chaos, is what I heard somebody call it recently, a specialist in perimenopause and menopause. They said you've entered the zone of chaos. The reason is because your body is starting to move from that cycle, right? That hormone cycle that allows you to have your periods and to be fertile and get pregnant and ovulate and all those things. It's moving from all of that with that hormone cycle, which kind of goes like this, right? And it's moving towards menopause, where you don't have that cycle. The hormones are supposed to be steady. But in that perimenopause phase, it doesn't follow the regular cycle, and it hasn't yet gotten to that steady state, and it goes all over the place. So, and you have no way of knowing when your progesterone is super low and when your estrogen is super high, or when your estrogen is super low. So you're not able to come in and go, okay, these are my current levels, and I need to be here with these levels. So I need to take this much of this hormone and this much of this hormone and this much of this hormone. Because from day to day, you don't know where your estrogen levels are going to be, where your progesterone levels are going to be, even where your testosterone and DHEA and all those things are going to be. So trying to supplement with it is very difficult, but you also end up feeling like, I don't know what y'all what you experienced with puberty, but I remember just being all over the place emotionally, and just that uncertainty. And that's how it feels. It feels like you're a teenager going through puberty again. It's not very comfortable. So that did the bioidentical hormones did get me to the place where I was able to function again, but it was still very, very difficult. And again, like I mentioned, a lot of my fibromyalgia symptoms came back, including the weather dependency part of it. So the overall body pain came back, and that's kind of underlying pretty much all the time. But then also when the weather changes even just a little bit, for me, what I used to experience with the fibromyalgia is that the pain would get a lot worse, and a lot of the other symptoms like fatigue and brain fog and things like that. And so that came back. And the hormones did not change that. And the fatigue didn't change a whole lot, and the motivation didn't change a whole lot with the bioidentical hormones. So I knew that I still had some work to do, but at least it got me to the place where I was slightly functional, right? Now, I believe that those bioidentical hormones that our bodies, when our bodies are healthy, and when we're not dealing with these hidden infections, and when the terrain of the body is healthy, meaning that we're not dealing with a whole lot of toxins in the body and our organs are functioning optimally, I truly believe that we won't need to depend on hormones for that to feel better. I do think that probably, well, I'm unsure about this right now, honestly, but I do think that it can be helpful to still supplement with some of those hormones. But things probably won't be super out of whack. So, why is it that some women breeze through menopause, breeze through perimenopause, barely even notice that it's happening? They just wake up one morning and they're like, oh, I'm not getting my period anymore. Oh, I wish that that were me. But but my thought process there is that for the women, for those of us who do have difficult perimenopauses and even menopauses, that that there are those underlying issues, those underlying infections. So this is the third part of what I've found has been super helpful. And that has been to start my protocols again, to start treating the underlying hidden infections again, to start detoxifying the body again, because there are layers to this, right? So I thought that I had gotten through most of the layers, when in fact what I'm now realizing and even seeing evidence of is that I had really just scratched the surface. So I've now been treating again and going through the protocols that I teach in my HEAL program again for 8 months now, and doing it in a deeper way even than I did before. I didn't have this same approach before when I was treating, right? I wasn't using the CellCore products, and we keep refining this process, right? So I'm still pooping out worms that I'm seeing, whereas before when I was treating, I had stopped seeing them. So this is what I'm talking about as far as there are layers to this. And I'm starting to feel better and better. And I'm going to be real with you. It's taken me 8 months of really making this a priority, this treating, to be able to get to the place where I feel like, and where my body even can handle working out regularly, to where I've gotten my motivation back, to where I'm not nearly as fatigued as before. I still have a little ways to go, but I'm talking 8 months of hitting it hard. That's not going to be the case for everybody, but it might be. And it might even take a little longer. But my big wins have been that I've been able to start exercising on a regular basis again. And I'm still not at the like crazy Wonder Woman level that I was at before, but I can feel that there's more vitality in my body. I can feel that I'm actually wanting to work out. I've been getting out and taking a walk every day, which I was not doing for like 2 years. And I no longer had long COVID or ME/CFS, so that wasn't the reason that I wasn't able to. So if you're dealing with perimenopause, or if you're experiencing these crazy weird symptoms and you're in your maybe even your late 30s or 40s or 50s, then perimenopause might be what you're experiencing. And just know that there are things that you can do, and that you're not alone. And that despite the fact that there is so little information out there, now this makes me angry, that there has been so little work done on how to feel better when you're in perimenopause and menopause, aside from, giving you drugs and harsh hormones that can mess things up. Just know that there are some answers. So again, just to sum up, I would start off with the Me support. That's the mental emotional support from CellCore, definitely. And then find someone that you can work with to do the bioidentical hormone creams. I'm not a big fan of taking hormone pills for a number of reasons, but Dr. Michelle Sands has a great program, that GLOW program for the bioidentical hormones. Also keeping in mind that it takes a month to 3 months for them to actually kick in. So you just kind of have to put them on in blind faith for a while. For some people, it works faster than that, but I think it took me about 2 months to start to notice a little bit of a difference. And then the third thing, and this is a commitment here, but this is going to make things better for your whole life. This third thing is to treat the root cause, treat these hidden infections, detox your body, and get the terrain of your body so that your body is working optimally. It's working to its optimal health blueprint. And we do that in my Heal program. So check that out. We'll put a link to that as well. I hope that's helpful. If you're dealing with perimenopause out there and it's giving you a tough time, please just know that you're not alone and that it is a crazy thing to deal with and that you can do these things to feel better. All right, please share this with somebody that you know would benefit from it and subscribe to our podcast, and I will see you next time.